Welcome to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive with Dr. Rebecca Risk. Do you ever feel that even though nothing seems seriously wrong and you pass all the medical tests, that you still feel that your health, pain, and fatigue are completely out of control? It doesn't have to be that way. Listen to the tips and suggestions given on our program today and take back control of your health. Now, here is Dr. Rebecca Risk.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Falling Through the Cracks. Today, I'm talking with Dr. Robyn Odegaard, who is a former competitive beach volleyball player and has spent her career using goal achievement psychology to motivate, inspire, and focus her clients on achieving success. Along with her husband, Russ Bruzano, they are the co-founders of the Whole Food Muscle Club and co-authors of How to Feed a Human, the Whole Food Muscle Way. So, Dr. Robyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So what inspired you and your husband to put this book together?
Well, when we started on this path of being healthier, and it's funny to say that because we were both competitive athletes, so we thought we were really healthy, but you get to a certain point in your life and your body suddenly doesn't work the way it used to, and so we went on a mission to figure it out. And when I did, people started noticing and started saying, "Can you help me?" And it got to the point where more people were asking than I could possibly help in my lifetime. And so I thought, what if we created a book? What if we wrote it down? And so that's what we did. And we worked on it together. And it's the first book I've written with my husband, and it worked out really well. So we're really pleased with it.
So when you were competitive and thought you were eating well, what were you eating?
Both of us kind of ate basically the Mediterranean diet. That's kind of what we thought was healthy. We had the proteins, which we used to think were super important. We had the starches, we had the vegetables, we had the fruits. And, as I got older, I started doing what most people do. I started doing the portion control thing to try and make sure that my weight stayed where it should, and it just stopped working, and my gut stopped working. And I remember going to the doctor and saying, my GI tract is broken. And she was like, yeah, you're getting older. That's just the way it happens. And I'm like, that can't be right. It can't be right that our bodies stop working as we age.
Well, I definitely agree on you. I think that, the age part can be an excuse. I mean, this isn't about the diet part, but when I was 20, I was told I was young and I would get over my symptoms. And when I had chronic neurological Lyme, which isn't recognized in the healthcare system in Canada, I was told, you're 30 now, this is the way it is. And I'm like, if this is 30, I don't know what 60 and 70 is going to be because I can't get out of bed. And I think that, they're missing that, a link somewhere of what's going on with people, to just say, oh, this is the way your body's going to be when we know that you could be so much more.
I completely agree. And my doctor even went so far as to tell me, you're over 40. This is how it's going to be for you, and you need to start accepting your new body. And she recommended that I go see a psychologist for my body dysmorphic disorder. And I said to her, I am a psychologist. I don't have body dysmorphic disorder. I'm overweight and my gut is broken. That's not in my head.
Yeah, I agree. It's and I've seen that happen with other people as well. They either gain weight or they lose weight, and they're not able to do anything about it, and their doctor tells them they have an eating disorder, when in actuality there is something inherently wrong with their food.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So what is the diet that you are doing now?
So for the Whole Food Muscle Club, what we recommend is at least 80% plant-based. And I say at least because we originally planned on doing 80%, and we felt so good we ended up being 100%. And now what we're seeing is the same thing happens with our clients. I recommend they go 80%, and then they're like, I feel so great. So 80% plant-based. For people for whom it's appropriate, we like to include intermittent fasting. It's not appropriate for everyone. For people who have really damaged their metabolism by doing a lot of yo-yo dieting, or who have disordered eating caused by years of doing portion control dieting, it's not appropriate. So intermittent fasting isn't appropriate for everyone, but for those that it is, it's a great way to allow your body to heal. And then, of course, exercise is a huge part of the whole food muscle way of going through life, because it's important to us and we find it's important to our clients. Not for weight loss, because exercise doesn't cause weight loss. It actually can make you heavier because it makes you hungry, but just to be healthy, exercise is super important.
Well, I agree with that. So let's talk about, so you said you were eating Mediterranean diet before, and do you find that most people are, that you were eating pretty healthy because you were both athletes, so you were probably choosing things that were considered on a healthier spectrum, but are most of your clients in that same category, or are they having what we call the standard American diet?
Yeah, most of our clients come to us from the standard American diet or from some other fad diet. Pretty much everybody's been on a fad diet somewhere, but a lot of them are eating a standard American diet that has a lot of the highly processed, highly palatable, what I call fake food in it. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges our clients have, is that getting that fake food out of their diet.
Well, I love that you're saying that, because I was speaking at a conference this weekend, and I it came to the part about we would have to recommend diet, and I actually don't recommend a very dramatic diet. I recommend real food, which can be very dramatic for people. We can get complicated and this and that, and let's do this fad diet, as you said. But I think that most people do well on those diets because of the standard diet that they're starting from has so much sugar in it and so much of the chemicals that are causing them harm, that when they switch over to any other fad diet that does contain, that cuts those out, they're going to feel better.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that's, we say all the time we do a daily live, and we say that the whole food muscle way is eat real food, mostly plants. That's kind of the bottom line to it.
So when we're talking about standard American diet, can you just lay out what that usually looks like?
So the standard American diet usually has a lot of processed meats in it. I'm talking about the hot dogs and the bacon and the deli meats. It's got a lot of snack foods that are shelf stable, things that they buy. That people always say, read the ingredients. Most of what we tell people to eat doesn't have ingredients. It's like sweet potato. That's not that is an ingredient. It's not, doesn't have ingredients on the packaging. But the standard American diet, a lot of boxed food, a lot of fast food, a lot of processed meats, and we joke, but when you look at commercials for standard American food, try to find a vegetable that hasn't been fried. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, that's true. So, and what is this diet doing to people?
So it's not really so much a diet as it is changing the way they look at food and the way they think about food. But we have a client who's lost over 100 pounds. We have a client who has reversed his type 2 diabetes. And when I say reversed his type 2 diabetes, I don't mean that he's hiding the symptoms. I mean he legitimately no longer has type 2 diabetes. So that's a very different thing. We have clients, myself included, who their gut is better. Like, my gut is no longer broken. Like, I feel like my GI tract works like it's supposed to finally, and I'm not bloated. I'm not miserable. I'm not stressed about food anymore. And people say to me all the time, it just makes me happy. And I don't know how you quantify happy for potential clients to say, if you join the Whole Food Muscle Club, you'll be happier about foods. Like, how do I quantify that? But that's one of the things that I hear from people, is they just feel happy with their food in their life again.
Which is pretty amazing. So when they were eating the standard American diet, what would that have typically looked like? So say your client that lost 100 pounds, what were they eating before they started?
They were eating kind of all the things that I mentioned. She's very busy. She's an entrepreneur. She was definitely one of those people that would grab food when she could, and whatever was available, that's what she ate. If the office brought in pizza, she ate that. If they brought in bagels with cream cheese, she ate just whatever was available. And I think for a lot of people, they think that their health is an inconvenience. Like, the way that they feed themselves is an inconvenience. They don't think about food. They don't want to think about food. They don't want to spend time on food. And so they eat whatever's quick and easy. And unfortunately, quick and easy is very rarely healthy.
Well, definitely agree on that. And I think it can be healthy. I just think that what's offered isn't healthy. And that there is a trend changing that. We have places that now you can get, healthy salads and bowls and stuff. But, 10 years ago or more, eat quick was, I got to go for fast food. I'm going to get a burger and fries, that kind of thing. It was very difficult to get something quick, easy, and healthy.
Right, yeah, and there's kind of three things that I ask people to think about when it comes to how they feed themselves, and part of that, the first one is what they're eating. That's, what you eat is super important. When you eat, are you eating it when you're actually hungry, or are you eating because you have a habit? And then why you eat. I think a lot of people don't realize that they have an emotional relationship with food, and they eat for reasons other than nourishment. And so those three things, what to eat, when to eat, and why to eat, are really important.
So I agree on that, and we're going to get into that. I want to talk more about when people first come to you. I think this is really important because I've done a lot of, coaching on diet changes and stuff, and I know that there is resistance for many reasons. So what do you see as the reasons for people to resist making these changes?
So people usually come to me when they've reached the point of, I've tried everything else, I'll try you. And that for me is kind of a little bit heartbreaking. I wish that they would come to me sooner, which I'm sure you have the same experience. But a lot of the pushback I get is, I don't have time. And, you probably know this, when you change your diet, there's a learning curve. When you change the way you eat, there's a learning curve. And we've all been taught to eat from the time we were itty-bitty from our parents, and so it becomes so ingrained that learning curve looks daunting. So they're a little bit overwhelmed by the learning curve. And so I don't have time is one of the things. The other one I get a lot is, I don't like vegetables. I hear that one a lot. And I'm like, well, that's because your taste buds are tuned to the salt, sugar, and fat that is the standard American diet. If we can clean that up, you'll like vegetables just fine. So that's a big one I get, is I don't like vegetables. And then a third one is, and it comes in different forms, but the social aspect of eating and how people feel like they don't want to be the weird person. They don't want to be the person that has a super restricted diet. They don't want to have to not be able to go out. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I go out, I have friends, it's fine. It's a learning curve. So those are the three things I think that I run into the most often. Which I think are really important. And the taste bud part I want to talk about, because, I remember noticing this the very first time that I changed how I was eating. It was before I was, doing this. I had to, for my health, I cut out sugar. And, I did notice and I still do, when I have sugar, I'm like, this doesn't taste right. Like, white sugar has an aftertaste that I just can't deal with. So I have no desire to eat those things. But one thing I also found, the social aspect of the eating, it's not, that I can't go out, even if you find a way to go out. I find other people were uncomfortable with the choices that I was making. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I attribute it also to the same thing that if you are a person who doesn't drink alcohol and you go out with people who do drink alcohol, they feel judged by you because they're choosing to drink. I think I see the exact same thing happening with food, where people who eat the standard American diet feel judged by people who make other choices, and so that can become a very ugly conversation where people are very aggressive about it because they feel judged by it, and it's an interesting psychological dilemma.
Yeah, I had a conversation quite a while ago on this show. It was about addictions. And the only theory that we could come up with was that there is people feel judged, but maybe they want to bring you down with their addiction because they haven't let it go yet. And, I find it interesting when I go out places because I'm not judging other people. I don't know where they're at. And it's their decisions and their body to eat and consume what they want. Even if they had come to me, I've given them advice and it's their prerogative to follow it or not. Or maybe they're just having a treat or they're whatever, I don't know. So if I see somebody doing something, I'm not judging them. And I think that's also important when we make these decisions to follow certain guidelines, is to not judge other people for not being in the same place we are.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And we have that happen when we go out at events. People, want to hide their plate from me. Don't judge me. I'm not judging you. Or we bump into people in the grocery store. Oh, don't look at my grocery cart. You are a grown adult. I just share information. What you choose to do with it is up to you. I have no judgment on it at all, ever.
Well, as a psychologist as well, that shame must be interesting to you because they're not proud of what they're doing, and I think it's important for us to assess our shame around food. I don't think there should be any, actually. I think if you want to go to McDonald's and you feel good about that, there shouldn't be shame about that. I think that brings a whole other level of how bad this food is for us, that emotional part. But our decisions, we should be proud of them. And then if we're not, we should assess why we're not and address that, and which I'm sure you and I could talk a whole other show on that, which we probably won't have time today. But it's important if you feel shame about something you're doing to assess why and if that shame is appropriate as well, because sometimes it's not.
And that is something that we, in the why you eat kind of category, that cognitive dissonance, that when you make a choice that's different than what your brain wishes you would make, and that cognitive dissonance, that shame you feel, and why that happens is something I dig into with a lot of our clients because it's a huge component of choosing to be healthy.
I definitely agree. Let's talk about this more when we get back. We're going to take a break. We're talking today with Dr. Robyn Odegaard, and we'll be back shortly.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
The Voice America Live Events channel is here now to showcase your corporate, individual, or organization's live event. Visit voiceamerica.com/live events to see all of our past live events and find out more. Whether it's a multi-day conference, special speaker, or single-day event, we've got everything to make your event a success. We can do a few hours or a few days. For more information about taking your event to the next level, call Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417 or email info@voiceamerica.com. Again, that's Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417 or send us an email to info@voiceamerica.com. Voice America is where you are and where you want to be. Join us around the globe as we broadcast live from some of the most interesting events available. Don't forget to view all our live events, including on-demand access to past events that you may have missed by visiting voiceamerica.com/live events.
Have you become a member yet? Sign up now to become a member of Voice America. It's always free and easy. Plus, you get to take advantage of some great member benefits. Get unlimited access to millions of hours of on-demand content across all of our channels. Keep track of your favorite episodes, shows, and hosts in your own customizable library. Find out what shows you might be interested in based on your favorites. Plus, you get insider access with our newsletter. Membership gives you more. Sign up at voiceamerica.com and click register at the top right.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Falling Through the Cracks with your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk. To reach the program today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email directly to Dr. Risk. The email address is anantacalgary@gmail.com. Now, back to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today we're talking with Dr. Robyn Odegaard, and she is the co-author with her husband of the book, How to Feed a Human the Whole Food Muscle Way. So, Dr. Robyn, before the break, you mentioned the words cognitive dissonance. Can you explain what that means?
Yes, absolutely. So cognitive dissonance is a really fancy way of saying when you make a decision to do something and then you do something different. So, for example, something that might cause cognitive dissonance is saying, I'm going to start this new diet on Monday. And then Monday comes and you don't do it. And then on Monday night, you're like, oh, you feel really bad. And that uncomfortable, annoying, like you mentioned, shame, frustrated, all those kind of negative emotions that happen when you want to do something and then you don't do it, that's what psychologists call cognitive dissonance.
Well, and this is really common when it comes to food. It's especially as you said, you're not doing a diet, you're actually changing your relationship with food. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. So if it's that one day it doesn't work, I mean, life is going to go on. I do tell my patients this as well, because I get them coming in, they're like, oh, I did cheat a couple times. I'm like, okay, first of all, I really like that word because that brings shame, but also, like, how did you feel about it, and what did you do, and did you, were you out with friends and enjoyed yourself, or did you feel really sick after when you had that certain food that we know bothers you? And then that brings awareness to them about what they're doing and why. And if they enjoyed a night out with their friends and had fun and had a few glasses of wine, I mean, life goes on, and you really need to have that enjoyment as well. So do you talk to your clients about finding that kind of balance?
Well, I love that you don't like the word cheat. I absolutely detest that word when it comes to food. It's not like you're a bad person and you are naughty and we're going to get, slap your fingers. That's not how this is. This is about a learning. And I remind my clients on a regular basis, it took me 8 months to make this change myself. When I decided that I was going to figure out, and I learned, this food bothers me, and if I eat, I went out late in our transition. I went out. My husband and I decided we were going to have nachos at a place where we used to eat nachos because it was a treat and we were going to enjoy it. And I got there and I actually asked the manager, "What did you do to the cheese?" And what I realized is my taste buds had changed so much that what I used to think was cheese was actually plastic. And that for me was a real aha moment. And I think every client I've ever worked with had an aha moment like that. And the guilt and the shame and the cognitive dissonance doesn't help you get to those aha moments. You have to allow yourself to learn, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly why I just say, okay. And I don't shame them for having strayed, especially if they say they only did it like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, oh, well, and then I ask them how they felt so that they can have that awareness themselves. I'm not going to tell them off. I'm not going to say they did something wrong and, oh, you ruined your whole treatment plan. Just how did it feel? Was it good? Was it not? Let's bring awareness to the foods that are working for you and the ones that aren't, so that they can see that themselves. And I think that's actually really important. I think 99.9% of the time, people do stray from whatever their plan is, which is totally what I think is human. And they should have those experiences to remind themselves of why they're doing what they're doing.
Do your clients ever say to you, "Oh, don't be mad at me"? I get that a lot, where my clients say, "Don't be mad at me." I'm like, "I'm not mad at you.
I've never been mad at anybody for not following through, or like being human." Is really, there's actually in my new patient package, I have a section on not to be upset with themselves because they are human and their follow through is not going to be perfect, and that's okay. I've given them permission not to be perfect, but we still have this human nature to want to be perfect, and I think it's really difficult personality or trait to battle, because it's very rare people don't feel that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, people, I have to remind my clients that making that step in the right direction is a step in the right direction. And that's what our goal is, every day, if you can be 1% better or even 0.5% better than you were yesterday, you're making huge progress. And maybe today you are 2% worse because you had a really blowout day. But overall, over the course of the month, you're X percentage better. You're moving in the right direction. I always say you can move any mountain with a teaspoon as long as you keep moving it.
Exactly. Well, and if you want to use the mountain analogy, you don't end up at the top in one day, or one minute. You've got to work towards what you're doing. Now, when you started to move towards a more plant-based diet, did you just overnight go, okay, this is where we're going to be, let's go shopping, and this is what we're going to do? Or how did you achieve that goal?
No, that we didn't. We joke and say we didn't go cold turkey and we didn't go whole hog. Which is funny because it's plant-based diet, turkey hog. Anyway. Exactly. No, what we did is we kind of made the decision that we would start adding more plants to our diet, whatever that looked like, more starches, more green leafy vegetables. we would finish up the food that we had in the house. And then our goal initially was that at home we would be plant-based, but if we went out or if we went to friends' houses or if we had friends over, we wouldn't worry about it. That was kind of our initial, this is the goal we have. But what we realized is that, like I said before, we felt better eating plant-based, but also I think a big aha moment for me was we had some friends over for dinner, and I made them turkey tacos, and Russ asked me, will you make bean tacos as well, because I don't want to eat turkey. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure, that's easy. So I just made everything and just had made beans and turkey. And at the end of the night, I had a lot of turkey left over, and I said to him, I'm like, are we going to eat this? And I grew up really poor, so for me, throwing food away is a huge no. But he said, I don't think we are, and we talked about it, and I couldn't find anybody to take it, and I ended up throwing it away. And what I realized in that moment was if I feel like food is so unhealthy for me that I won't eat it, even as a leftover, that I'm willing to throw it away, why am I feeding it to my friends?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point, and obviously they were okay with the bean part of the meal, and I think it would be no different. You said you went to a friend's house and didn't worry about the choice you were making, and they were feeding you meat. It should go both ways, I think. At this point, we don't have that. Yeah.
Like our clients all feed us beans. It's our friends and clients all feed us beans. They're like, no, I made this for you. I want you to try it. And now I tell people all the time, come over, I'll feed you plants.
Yeah, I'll feed you plants. So now we're talking about plant-based diet, but we haven't actually explained what that means yet. So can you just walk us through? I mean, we know what people are eating, and everybody knows the standard American diet isn't good. It's full of chemicals and it's deep fried, and it's all white basically. If people were to look at what they're eating, they would find it's kind of a beige color, and like the burger bun and the fries and the chips and all of that kind of stuff. But when you're doing this diet, what would that look like in a day?
So a lot of people ask me, is this diet vegan? And yes, kind of. And I say that because vegan is an ethos, and what you eat is part of that ethos. Being plant-based doesn't have the same ethos as being vegan. So being plant-based is about only what you eat. Whether you choose to wear leather or have leather seats in your car has nothing to do with eating the whole food muscle way. That's not it. That's about being vegan. So when I talk about eating plants, I mean eating whole plants, the way they come out of the ground in all the beautiful colors, eating the starches and getting all the spices. Like you can create a lot of amazing flavors with spices and sauces that are low in oil, but also we try to limit the amount of processed food that we eat. So, for example, Oreos are vegan. I would not recommend people eat them. They are not a health food. Oil is another one that people are like, no, olive oil is good for you. Not entirely true. Olive oil is better for you than lard, but overall, oil is 100% fat. It's better that you go ahead and eat the olives. So, trying to eat the whole food as much as possible, and then eating plants the way they come out of the ground.
Which I think is what we're meant to eat. I mean, eat real food, obviously, not processed food. Our bodies don't really know what to do with that, and there are a lot of theories of what's happening with obesity and metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes, why this is emerging, and everybody knows it's the food's the problem. We just don't have 100% of an answer, because I've done a lot of shows and everybody says the food's the problem. And so we agree on that part. And, I think even if people just change a little bit, or they just start this slowly, they're going to see some changes in how they're feeling. Because if you just, if you cut back on your fast food or you cut back on your sugars, you're going to feel better, especially if you are introducing more food and more colors. I said standard American diet is beige, and I'm guessing that your diet is a rainbow of colors on the plate.
Oh, yeah. We post pictures in our Facebook group, the Whole Food Muscle Facebook group, of what's for lunch. And people always comment about, there's so many colors in what you eat. And that's true. There really is. It's all about getting the colors. And for us, sometimes my plate gets overflowing because I'm like, oh, that has great nutrients. Let me throw some of that on. Oh, that has great nutrients. Let me throw some of that on. And it's nice because I don't have to worry about calorie counting. I don't have to count macros or micros. I don't count anything. I just eat real food.
So, when you eat the real food. Now, one thing, that I know that happens, especially with fast food and the grease, it actually will make people hungrier and they end up craving more. How do you feel when you eat your meals? Do you feel satiated? I mean, you're not eating meat, and a lot of people think that that's what you need to feel like you are full. So how are you feeling after your meals?
Right. So what happens when people eat a lot of the standard American diet and eat a lot of grease is they end up with calorie rich. So they have lots and lots of calories, but nutrient poor. And so your body needs nutrients. And so your body says, great, I have all these calories. I'll store those as fat, but I still need some nutrients. So please feed me more. And then you feed yourself the same thing. And you end up with this cycle where your body's begging for nutrients and all you're giving it is calories. We have exactly the opposite situation where we're giving our body tons of nutrition, but not tons of calories, because whole food has fiber in it, which is great, which is why my gut works again. Yay. And so we get tons of nutrients and the fiber that makes us feel full. And so we are always satiated. Our breakfast, we call it oatmeal. It's actually way more than just oatmeal. It has blueberries and seeds and spices and all kinds of fun stuff in it. Fills me up, and I'm happy with that for probably 6 hours before I'm ready for lunch. And then I have, a beautiful salad. And I hate to say salad because people think plant-based means only salad, but I always want to get my greens in, and I find I do that best at lunch. So salad with tomatoes and peppers and black beans and maybe some barley, and makes me think about lunch right now.
We're making people hungry, I'm sure. So, I think people can get around having the oatmeal for breakfast, but, especially where I live in, there's a lot of meat eaten in Alberta. What would you have for dinner?
Oh, so for dinner, I like to batch cook on weekends. And so this weekend I made a batch of really hearty pea soup. Obviously plant-based, no ham in it, but pea soup. And I put kamut in it, which is an ancient grain, kind of like barley. So it gives it that chewy flavor that kamut has. And it's so filling, stick to your bones, great for fall. And then, we have Russ's Rustic Bread, which he has a bread recipe it's basically everywhere. If you download our starter kit from the Whole Food Muscle Group, if you get our book, it's the recipe on our website, thewholefoodmuscleclub.com. His bread is one of the best things ever, and we eat it with hummus. I make roasted tomato hummus. I make roasted red pepper hummus. I make just regular hummus. Oh, so yummy. And then fruit. We like to have fruit for a dessert, and sometimes I make nice cream, which is frozen bananas with other fruit mixed in to get kind of an ice cream consistency.
Well, it sounds like you guys have gotten really creative because, like you said, most people think plant-based, I'm just going to be stuck eating salads and, steamed broccoli and a big plate of all of this stuff. And they get turned off even without looking into it more. But it sounds like you guys are having a lot more fun with it.
Oh, we are. One of my favorite things to serve our friends is sweet potato lasagna. They come over and they're like, this is amazing. And there's word, like people have heard, if Robyn invites you over, get her to bake sweet potato lasagna. So there are so many things that you can make that are so yummy and so palatable and so filling and loaded with nutrition. And you're going to feel better. You're going to weigh your ideal weight. You're going to have more energy. You're going to sleep better. It's amazing.
Which is really encouraging. Now, you're both athletes, and I know that one of the things people are probably thinking is you must not be getting enough protein if you're not eating meat, because this is what we all think about. So what is your comment back to the protein conversation?
There is a whole chapter in the book about the protein cult. And I could go into the science of where this whole idea of excess protein came from, but with that, again, that's a whole separate show. But the short answer is this. You only need about 10% of your calories to be protein. And it's actually better for you to get them from plants. Plants, if you eat a whole plant-based diet, you're going to get 10% protein, give or take, without a problem. It just happens without counting. There's no such thing as a protein deficiency ward in the hospital where vegans are sent. It's not a thing. People don't have an issue with protein deficiency. And if you eat a lot of animal protein, it stresses your kidneys, it stresses your liver, it's really hard on your body. And then the next question I get, and I'll just dovetail into this because it's an important point, is people say, well, yes, but you have to count, right, and make sure you get complete proteins. No, I don't have to do that either. I'm going to get complete proteins just by eating a variety of foods. And, if we had to eat our protein in exactly the right order of amino acids, you'd have to actually eat your own flesh. And even if you did that, your body would still take it apart and put it back together. So that's what happens when you take in protein. Your body separates the amino acids and puts it back in the order it wants it. And you're going to get plenty just eating a lot of plants.
So you're saying that the plants have the protein that we need, and we don't have to load up on eating meat 3 times a day and in large portions.
Right. So animals don't actually make protein. They're just protein distributors. So any animal you eat, I don't care what kind of animal it is, any animal you eat gets its protein from the plants that they eat. All of them. That's where they get their protein. And then they turn it into muscle, just like humans do. And when you eat animal protein, they've taken the protein from the plant, they've turned it into the muscle, they've added saturated fat and cholesterol. So you're using a third party to get your protein, and they add the writer of saturated fat and cholesterol that you don't need.
Which is really interesting. I find it difficult to tell people to cut out meat, especially where I am, but I do tell them to cut back. A lot of time, when I ask people how much they're eating, their steak is probably 3 or 4 times the size it should be. And then I hold my hand out and I show them the palm of my hand. And I say, this is what my portion should be. So even if you're consuming meat, it's important to look at how much you're eating, because you're probably eating too much. And I think that we've gone in that direction quite dramatically. Probably helps us feel a little more full when we're eating all the chemicals and fried food. But we're eating too much. And I think it's also something our society does. We just go overboard with everything that we do, and we've lost our balance.
Well, that goes back to the point of so much of the food that we eat. When I say we, I mean we as a culture, is that hyper palatable, tastes really good, designed to make a company money. And what they do is they make foods, these processed foods, that hit the bliss point. And this is what restaurants do too. They want to hit the bliss point. And the bliss point is the point where it has the exact balance of salt, sugar, and fat that turns off your body's ability to say, I've had enough. Please stop eating now. And because the more you eat, the more money they make. And unfortunately, so many of us don't even realize we've forgotten what it means to feel hungry. We've forgotten what it means to say I've had enough, because we've been tricked by these food industry.
I definitely agree. We're going to take a break. We're talking today with Dr. Robyn Odegaard, and we'll be back shortly.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Take us on the go. It's even easier now. The Voice America Talk Radio Network has a mobile app for iOS, Android, or Amazon Kindle. Visit the Apple App Store, Amazon, or Google Play to download the app powered by Aircast. It's free and no registration is necessary. In minutes, you could be enjoying your favorite Voice America Talk Radio host no matter where you are, in the car, out and about, while traveling, or anytime you can't be close to your computer. Catch up on the archives you've missed or discover new shows on the spot. Search Voice America at your favorite app store.
We're on the pulse of the world with great shows and hosts. The Voice America Health and Wellness channel is also on Twitter. We've got ideas to keep you healthy, breaking health news, and more. Follow us on Twitter at VoiceAM Health. That's at VoiceAM Health.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Falling Through the Cracks with your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk. To reach the program today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email directly to Dr. Risk. The email address is anantacalgary@gmail.com. Now, back to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today we're talking with Dr. Robyn Odegaard, and she's a co-author of the book, How to Feed a Human the Whole Food Muscle Way. So, Dr. Robyn, you and your husband who wrote this book with you are both athletes. And, I think a lot of people could be looking at this and going, yeah, it's probably easy for you because you've done a strict diet for a long time and all you had to do is change a couple of things. What's your response to that?
I don't think people realize how badly I ate when I was a competitive athlete, first of all. I was in my 20s, and I was going to, beach volleyball tournaments where they had all the things that they have at beach volleyball tournaments. And, I thought about it, but to say that I was really restrictive and ate a great diet when I was competing, no, definitely that isn't true. I do think that I have the same challenges that other people do. In the book, I talk about I used to have a really big challenge with chocolate chip cookies, which I loved, and I'm so fortunate that since the book came out, I found a recipe for chocolate chip cookies that is plant-based. Now, they are not a health food; they are still a dessert, but I don't have to worry about the eggs and the salt that's in them, the oil that's in regular cookies.
So when you're talking about all of this, of course, a lot of people are thinking, well, you've got better willpower because as an athlete, even if you ate poorly as an athlete, you had the willpower to work out and be an athlete. And I have found that athletes have a different personality type, that they can be as hardcore as they are to be as competitive as they are. So do you find that that's a factor as well?
Well, I think you're absolutely right that as an athlete, I have a different mindset. I have a different way of looking at the world. I'm definitely much more attuned to doing the hard thing now to get the goal in the future. So I'm much better at delayed gratification, I think, than a lot of people are. But when it comes to the whole food muscle way of eating, it's not about willpower. And I try to tell people that one of the things that they have to stop doing is saying, well, I can't have that or I can't have this. Instead, look at it as I choose not to today, or I choose not to at this moment. Because if you have to use your willpower, you're going to fail. We all end up in a place with willpower fatigue and decision exhaustion, where we just have too much going on. All of our lives are so busy, and you only have so much willpower in your life. And you've probably had this with your clients. By the end of the day, people will say, "Oh, you know what? I do great for lunch. I do great for breakfast, I do great with my snacks, but at night, all of it just goes out the window and I just can't anymore." And that is willpower fatigue. And so what we have to do is start training our brain, instead of using our willpower, to be able to say, this is what I want to eat and this is what I don't want to eat, and not say, I'm not having that, because that's never going to work.
Well, and so we have this willpower fatigue, but we also have another aspect, especially if somebody's really hardcore into the standard American diet, that they're very addicted to what they're eating. Mm-hmm. And cutting it out, especially if they went cold turkey, as you said, is going to be really difficult. Cravings are called cravings because they're not decisions, they're cravings. So what do you do to help somebody get through that hump until those cravings disappear?
So the first thing that we have to do is start recognizing, what is causing these cravings? What's going on with that? So using smoking is a really good example because it's an addiction that people recognize. A lot of smokers, if they're driving in the car, they have to have a cigarette. If this happens, then I have to have a cigarette. And I find with a lot of people with their cravings, there are certain things that trigger those cravings, and they're predictable. You can say, if this happens, then I want to eat that. And some of it's emotion, especially in the United States, and I'm sure somewhat in Canada, maybe not quite as much, but certainly in the United States, we eat for everything. We eat if we're happy, we eat if we're sad, we eat if we're celebrating, we eat if we're, rejected, everything. If there's an emotion, we eat. And I think starting to recognize what emotions are tied to what foods, what behaviors are tied to what foods, what triggers a craving. Those things are so helpful. And I know it sounds really prefrontal cortex logic, whatever, but it really, really helps.
Well, it's definitely very common in Canada as well. I mean, food is, and I think it's important to also recognize food is very ingrained in every culture. And so it is okay to celebrate with it and to do things. But I think if it becomes a daily issue where you're stressed out and so you need to have this certain thing or that kind of thing, there's something else going on for sure, like a inability to deal with your stress or covering it up. And it's important to look at that aspect of what's going on while you're making these changes as well, so that you understand what your body's doing.
And that's one of the things. It's one of the reasons why, as a psychologist, I feel like I'm especially talented. I don't know if talented is the right word. Equipped to help people handle this, because I recognize the psychological aspect of food. It's not just the nutrition that I've studied, but the psychological piece that comes with it as well.
And so when somebody, let's say they are dealing with more of a food is my crutch, what would you do to walk them through that?
So again, figure out where are they using it as a crutch, why are they using it as a crutch, and what else is going on in their lives. I feel like a lot of people have let their lives get really out of control, and they don't even recognize how out of control it is. Maybe they're in a job where they're being held accountable to do things over which they don't have the authority to actually do them. So they're completely out of control in their life, so they want to control their eating. And that can manifest in a lot of different ways. It can manifest in, anorexic type eating. It can be bulimic. It can be overeating. Like, there's a lot of different ways that people take control in their lives over their eating when they don't have control in other places. So that's something we look at. Of course, their exercise is a huge component. Exercise is a big piece of managing stress and creating a healthy body. So we look at that. I look at their sleep. There are a lot of people who brag, I only need 5 hours. No, you can function on 5. You actually need 8. So that's something we look at as well.
So do you find that sleep can be connected to the cravings and how much they're eating in a certain day?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So if you don't get enough sleep, your body is going to want to mitigate that problem by eating more, taking in more calories. So and college kids kind of know this instinctively, that if they don't sleep, they eat more and they can still kind of function. The human body is amazing. You can pretty much treat it like anything for about 30 years and it'll kind of function. But after about 30, and especially as you start getting toward 40, you can't do that anymore. And, people say, I'm getting old. Well, you just weren't treating your body very well previously. You maybe need to tweak that a little bit.
So when you did this, you're obviously still doing it, but when you started doing this, you said before, you weren't feeling so great. So what changes did you see in yourself when you started to follow through?
So the first thing that people started noticing and saying to me was, wow, your skin looks really good. Did you change something? And I was like, no, and I had no idea what people were talking about. And then after like the 6th person, I realized, oh, wait, I'm changing the way I eat. So that was the first thing that other people noticed was my skin. The first thing that I noticed was I stopped being miserable at night. Like my gut hurt so bad I couldn't sleep. Like I would lay awake at night feeling just bloated and miserable, and that started going away. But it would come back. If I ate something that I was trying to move away from, then I would be miserable again, and I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So that definitely helped. And then I lost 15 pounds in the first 10 weeks. And people who knew me were like, I didn't even know you needed to lose weight, but I knew I was heavy. I knew I was thick. So that definitely made a difference for me. But kind of a real aha moment for me was when I went and got my blood work and my cholesterol had dropped 50 points. That was a big deal for me.
Yeah, that is amazing. Because as you said, you thought you were eating well and you're eating the Mediterranean diet. And then, if you have high cholesterol, there's something wrong with what you're doing for sure. Yeah.
Yep. And the only place you get cholesterol is from animal products. So when you start eliminating them, your body has the ability to lower your cholesterol naturally without drugs, which is really nice.
That's amazing. So you have the Whole Food Muscle Club. What is that?
So the Whole Food Muscle Club is an online kind of support place, and we have a lot of information on there, and we do monthly live webinar Q&As to answer any questions. People email us questions or they ask them live. So Russ and I, once a month, do a live Q&A. There's a community page where people can, put questions and interact with each other, and I put articles. So it's really an online support group where people can come and get information and learn and feel safe. Like there's no judgment. We don't allow trolling at all in our club. It's just not something we allow. So it's a safe place to kind of make this change at your pace and get your questions answered and learn. And it's so much fun to have people join. And for your listeners, we have a special. They can go to wholefoodmuscle.com. So if they leave the word club off, just go to wholefoodmuscle.com, and they can download our starter kit for free, and then they get a special offer for joining the club as well.
Well, it's pretty amazing because, a lot of people do write books on diet, but I find most people, they look at it and then they're like, I'm having trouble following through and no one will do this with me. And a lot of people want somebody to do it along with them or coach them or help them. It's very hard to make that change by yourself. Let's say your family doesn't want to do it with you or feels they don't need to. And it can feel very isolating, as we spoke about in the first segment about going out and people are not comfortable themselves with the choices you've made, which can make you more uncomfortable if you don't have that backup and that support.
Yeah, and you can end up with people, I've seen this happen too with clients, is that they end up with people in their lives who are actively trying to sabotage them. And, that could be a whole separate show of dealing with people in your life who are trying to sabotage you, and whether they're doing it purposefully because they want you to fail or whether they're trying to love you to death. I see that a lot because people use food as love, and if they try to love you with food that isn't good for you, then that's a problem and a conversation you need to have.
Well, and I mentioned this very briefly, but when I first quit eating sugar, that was the case. And it wasn't on purpose. It was just people were really uncomfortable. And they're like, just having one piece of chocolate isn't going to hurt you. And I'm like, but that one piece of chocolate, if it's 5 times a day, every day it will. And that was my problem. And so I was trying to make that decision, but people are like, well, just go ahead and celebrate with us. Just have one. And I worked in this office where it was every day we had these kind of things happening, so I had to say no.
Celebrate it Tuesday.
Yeah, right. Somebody brought this in. Let's have some, and they were so uncomfortable that I was there and I was celebrating with them, but I just didn't want their food, and I think that because it's so ingrained in our culture and such a common thing that it's very difficult for people to see us make those choices in a different direction.
Yeah, and that's a conversation that we have in the Whole Food Muscle Club pretty often, where we help people kind of work through these conversations with their loved ones to say, how do I make this work for me? And it's amazing how often when people start moving in this direction, they start feeling better. Those loved ones that were sabotaging suddenly want to come along, and that is really rewarding when that happens.
Yeah, definitely. Now, if people want to get a hold of your book, how can they do so?
How to Feed a Human is available anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the places. It's available at pretty much anywhere books are sold.
Perfect. Well, Dr. Robyn, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time talking with you. It's a fun conversation.
Oh, perfect. Thanks so much. We were talking today with Dr. Robyn Odegaard, and the book is How to Feed a Human the Whole Food Muscle Way. If you want more information about my story and what I went through to get back to health, you can find that on my website at dr-risk.com. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Pinterest. And you can email questions to anantacalgary@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening today. Be sure to make today a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive. Please join Dr. Rebecca Risk again next Monday at noon Eastern Time and 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. We'll talk more.